Good morning. Okay, what we're going to do today, turn in your packet and you're going to see a page called Hrothgar's story. Okay, you're going to see vocabulary up on top. You're going to see a summary. Okay, and that summary goes on the back as well. Right, I am going to read the summary today and then you guys are going to answer the questions. Okay, you will be able, the first section is, we'll say Beowulf Introduction and History, and there are 41 questions for that, but most of these questions are done in just about one word or so, and they are a review from the Beowulf background sheet, most of them. Okay, then you will have Beowulf questions. Okay, don't worry about the titles, but you'll have another Beowulf section, and that will go 1 through 19, and then you'll have the last one, which will be 1 through 20. On the back, you will see it's called Beowulf Introduces Himself to Hrothgar. Okay, we're going to stop there. Okay, so you'll only do those questions today. Okay, don't worry about the labels for the questions, like when it says Beowulf Canvas questions 1 through 11 on the sheet right here. Don't worry about that. I used to teach Beowulf in a different way. All right, so on your sheet that you have, I tried to make the questions and the answers short, so you are welcome to answer them right on this sheet. If you would like to answer them in a separate sheet of paper and staple it, you are more than welcome to do that. But when it comes time to studying for the test, if you can, it would be easier for you to study or get the answers if they're right here. But you do whatever you want. Okay? Then on this sheet, I'm going to go over every part of this. The vocab, I'm going to read, but it's going to be mixed in with here. So you are going to have to read the transcript. You're going to have to listen to the video, okay? This is a continued practice of reading and listening skills, okay? I will take this up at the end of the day. All right, so let's go ahead and let's look at the names up here. I will incorporate and I will mention every one of these, but we have Beowulf, Hrothgar, Shield Chieftain, which you're going to see is going to be spelled a different way, and I'll help you out with that. Okay, Bow, Halfdane, Hairroot, or there's also Heorot. You can hear two pronunciations of that. Then you have something called Ecthau or Hthou. Depending on the translation, there's also different ones. Okay, Danes, a Viking funeral, Denmark, Geats, Germanic people, Vikings, Wiglaf, Grendel, warrior, decapitation, Mede, Grendel's mother, Cain, Valhalla, epic poem, oral tradition, and a monk's influence. Okay, so all of that will be mentioned. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start reading. Okay, part 1, the Danish kings. I'm going to read it. I'm going to stop. I'm going to explain some of the characters, some of the vocabulary words, incorporating them through. So your job is to listen, to read the transcript, pause the video whenever you need to pause it to take a chance to write, and you're going to go ahead and fill it in. So what is Beowulf? Beowulf is an epic poem, okay, just like we've been talking about. It's a long poem that tells the story of a great hero and his adventures. Epic poems often tell stories about heroes, battles, monsters, kings, and great deeds. So some of the battles that Beowulf goes into, he's going to fight a dragon, he's going to fight monsters. Okay, Beowulf is one of the oldest surviving works of English language, okay, or it's the extant. Okay, its author is unknown because remember, Beowulf is originally memorized and recited. We don't actually know who wrote it. Okay, the poem was written down in Old English during the Anglo-Saxon period, and although the story takes place much earlier during the 6th century, so in 500s. Okay, so 6th century, that's the 500s. Okay, this poem was originally told and passed down orally before it was written down because most people could not read or write. That's called illiterate. All right, stories were memorized, performed, and passed from one generation to another. And eventually, Christian monks wrote the story down, and as they copied the poem, they added some Christian ideas and references to the story. So Beowulf is part of the tradition of heroic poetry, which means it's about a hero. Heroic poems tell stories about warriors and their great accomplishments. So for example, we have the Greek poet Homer, who was famous for two other epic poems. You have the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad is about the Trojan War and Achilles, and the Odyssey follows Odysseus and his journey home. Okay, now I'm on the next section where it says the Anglo-Saxons and the Germanic culture. The story of Beowulf comes from a world shaped by Germanic and Scandinavian cultures. The Scandinavian people were known as the Norsemen or Vikings. That's the word you've probably heard the most, are Vikings. England was a violent place during the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages. Different groups fought for control of the land. The Celts were the earliest people living in England. Then the Romans later conquered much of Britain, and after the Romans left, the Germanic people, including the Angles or Anglo-Saxons, okay, Saxons and Jutes. Okay, so all three of these were just a name for Germanic people. They invaded and settled into England, and these groups helped to form the Anglo-Saxon society. Okay, Germanic people placed great value on warriors and brave leaders. So this is where Valhalla comes from. One of your words up here is Valhalla. That's the Viking or the Anglo-Saxon afterlife. Okay, they didn't believe in heaven and hell. They were not a Christian culture. Okay, they had Valhalla, and the rule to get into Valhalla is a warrior had to die in battle. Okay, so they placed great value on warriors and brave leaders. Strength, courage, loyalty, reputation, and success in battle were extremely important. Groups such as Vikings became known as powerful and sometimes brutal conquerors. Beowulf represents many of these Germanic values because he fights like a warrior seeking fame and glory through battle, but later he actually becomes king and he protects his people and his kingdom. Okay, I'm now in the setting of Beowulf. The story takes place in Scandinavia, but especially Denmark. So that's where the story takes place, is Denmark. Okay, and it also mentions the land of the Geats. Geats are a tribe, and Beowulf is a Geat. So the Geats were Germanic people and who lived in what is now Sweden. So the story takes place in Denmark, but Beowulf is actually from Sweden. Those are two countries up in Scandinavia. Okay, they are often considered ancestors of the modern Swedes. And the Danes lived in Denmark, where their king was Hrothgar. So up here, you have Hrothgar. Hrothgar is the king of the Danes. Okay, he's the king of Denmark. Okay, the language was used in the original written poem was Old English, and Old English was spoken by the Anglo-Saxons, who were the ancestors of the English people. Anglo-English, okay, it transformed into English with time. Okay, now we've got the Danish kings. The Danish king, or the story begins with the history of the Danish royal family. So it's talking about Hrothgar's family, all right? And the first great king mentioned is Skjold-Skifsson, okay? Skjold-Skifsson, who is up here, he's the third one, he's the original king, okay? He is the original king of Denmark, but he had a really unusual beginning. He arrived as a baby on a ship. He grew into a powerful warrior and king, and in Germanic society, a king was also expected to be a strong leader and a warrior, and Skjold-Skifsson became famous for his victories, and he gained loyalty of many warriors. And when he died, he received an elaborate ship burial. So Viking funerals, where you put the body on a ship, you sent it out to sea, and then everyone in the kingdom lit arrows on fire, and they shot it, and they burned the ship so that way it could go to Valhalla. It was a very respectful way of sending warriors into the afterlife. The ship was, his body was placed on a ship with weapons, armors, gold, and other treasures. The ship was then sent out to sea. Now, Skjold-Skifsson was followed by his son, Bo. Bo also became a successful king, and he continued the royal family. And Bo's son was Halfdane. Halfdane became the father of several children, including Hrothgar. So it goes Skjold-Skifsson. He's the original. He had Bo. Bo had Halfdane. Halfdane was Hrothgar's dad. So Halfdane gave birth to Hrothgar. Hrothgar is the king in our story. Okay, and who eventually became king of the Danes. And the royal family can remember it this way: Skjold-Skifsson, Bo, Halfdane, Hrothgar. Okay, I'm now at Hrothgar builds Heorot or Heorot. You'll hear two different pronunciations of that. Because when we watch the movie, they say Heorot, I'm going to use that pronunciation this time. After becoming king, Hrothgar became a powerful leader with many warriors and great wealth. Hrothgar wanted to create a place where his warriors could gather and celebrate, so he ordered the construction of a magnificent mead hall called Heorot. Heorot represented the height of Danish civilization. It was a place where warriors gathered together to celebrate victories, share food and mead, listen to stories, hear music, and enjoy the company of one another. And the mead hall is extremely important to Germanic society because it represented community, safety, friendship, loyalty, and civilization. And however, the happiness inside Heorot attracted a monster. So there was a monster that was taking over the land, and he hated noise more than anything. Another word for noise is called din, D-I-N. Okay, and so this monster, whose name is Grendel, okay, his name is Grendel, he would come and attack every night. So a monster named Grendel lived far away from human society in a dark, isolated place. And Grendel hated the happiness he heard coming from Heorot. And every night he heard the Danes celebrating, singing, eating, drinking, and telling stories. And Grendel became angry and began attacking the hall. So Grendel, he not only didn't like happiness, they were being so loud, and it was hurting his ears. Okay, so he just came in and started killing everyone. Okay, so he would enter Heorot at night while the warriors were sleeping. He killed the men and carried their bodies back to his lair, and the attacks again, and again. So every single night he killed 30 men, took them back to his lair, and he would eat them. And he did this every single night for 12 years. For 12 years, Grendel terrorized the Danes. He came into Heorot almost every night, killing warriors and eating their bodies. Hrothgar and his people were helpless against him. The once happy hall became a place of death and sadness. The warriors could no longer safely gather there at night, and the hall became almost like a morgue, with blood and death replacing music, food, and celebration. And the Danes tried to find a way to stop Grendel, but nothing worked, and we will find out later why it didn't work. They even prayed to idols and other gods for help. But later, when Christian monks, because they rewrote Beowulf, when they rewrote it, they made Beowulf Christian. Even though he was not part of a Christian culture, they made it Christian. So they added Christian ideas about, the monks connected the story to Christian God, biblical figures such as Cain. Cain is the world's first murderer, Cain and Abel. It's a biblical story. And in Beowulf, the monks rewrote it so that Grendel was actually a descendant of Cain. Hrothgar desperately needed someone strong enough to defeat Grendel, so he was terrorizing Heorot every night. No one could stop him. They really, really needed a warrior to come and help them. Okay, so I'm at Beowulf. Here's about Grendel. News of Grendel's attacks eventually reached the land of the Geats, and Beowulf, a young and powerful Geat warrior, heard the news about the suffering of Hrothgar and the Danes. And Beowulf is known for his incredible strength and his desire for fame and glory. He decided to travel to Denmark and fight Grendel. Beowulf gathered 14 warriors to accompany him, and they were among the strongest warriors of the Geats. And together they boarded a ship and sailed towards Denmark. And their journey took about 2 days. But here's the crazy thing. Do not mistake Beowulf as coming out of the goodness of his heart. He was not coming like, oh no, people are in trouble, I need to go help them. No. Beowulf was coming for the glory. He wanted to be the world's best warrior. Well, you can't be the world's best warrior unless you fight the world's biggest demon. And right now, Grendel was the world's biggest demon. So he wasn't coming necessarily to help Hrothgar and the people. He wanted to become legendary. Okay, I'm now at the Geats arrive in Denmark. So Beowulf and his warriors, they arrive in Denmark by ship. And they actually noticed that they were close to land because they saw seagulls. Okay, they landed near the Danish coast where a watchman guarded the cliffs. His job was to watch for enemies and protect Denmark from possible invasion. The watchman immediately noticed that the Geats were carrying swords, shields, and armor, and he became suspicious because they arrived without being invited or even given permission by the Danish king. So the guard, when he saw them arrive, was a little freaked out because here come these amazing warriors loaded down with weapons, and he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Who are you? Who invited you? As they were worried, oh my God, we've got Grendel taking us over, and now we have to worry about these warriors taking us over too. Like, this is too much. But the watchmen stopped them, demanded to know who they were, why they'd come, and Beowulf spoke for the group, and he explained that they were Geats and they had actually come in peace. And he also explained that they had heard about the terrible monster attacking the Danes. And Beowulf told the watchman that he was the son of Hrothgar, a famous warrior. The watchman was still cautious, but Beowulf's confidence convinced him that the Geats were not ordinary travelers, and he agreed to lead them towards Hrothgar's hall. All right, I'm at the last section where it says the Geats reach Hrothgar. Okay. The watchman led Beowulf and his warriors toward the magnificent hall. The warriors arrived at Heorot, Hrothgar's great mead hall. They stacked their shields and weapons and waited inside. A Danish warrior named Wulfgar met them. He was an officer of Hrothgar and recognized that Beowulf and his men appeared to be powerful warriors. Beowulf asked Wulfgar to take a message to King Hrothgar. He wanted to tell Hrothgar that the Geats had come to fight the monster. Wulfgar went to Hrothgar and told him that a group of Geats had arrived, and he explained that their leader was Beowulf. Hrothgar immediately recognized Beowulf's name, so it's kind of cool. Beowulf and Hrothgar have a connected history. Hrothgar doesn't know Beowulf personally, but he knew Beowulf's daddy, Hrothgar. So Hrothgar back in the day did something very naughty. He killed a man that he was not supposed to kill, and the tribe of the dead man wanted to kill Hrothgar. Well, Hrothgar actually sent an entire ship of treasure over to the tribe to save Hrothgar's life. And so he remembered Hrothgar, Beowulf's father. Hrothgar had known Hrothgar years earlier and had once helped him. Hrothgar had heard stories about Beowulf's incredible strength. He had been told that Beowulf had the strength of 30 men. Hrothgar was excited by Beowulf's arrival because he hoped this powerful young warrior might finally be able to defeat Grendel. Okay, what I would like you to do now is I want you to, if you have not already been answering the questions as we went along, okay, then go ahead and do so now. Answer the questions. You can again answer them right on the sheet, or you can write them on a separate sheet and just simply staple. So looking back at the vocabulary, let's see. Okay, we've covered Beowulf, Hrothgar, Shield Chieftain, Bow, Halfdane, Heorot, Hrothgar, Danes, a Viking funeral. If you don't remember, that's what happened to Shield Chieftain. Denmark, Geats, Germanic people, Vikings. Okay, Wiglaf. I must have forgotten to mention him. Wiglaf is Beowulf's best friend. Okay, Grendel, a warrior, a decapitation. Decapitation will come later, but decapitation is when you cut someone's head off. Okay, Mead, Grendel's mother. We will talk about Grendel. She'll play a big role later on, but Grendel's mother is just as the description implies. Okay, she is the mother of the monster Grendel. Okay, Cain, this is the biblical reference that we made, Cain and Abel. Cain is the world's first murderer. Okay, Valhalla, we mentioned that, an epic poem. An oral tradition is just when you memorize and recite a poem without writing it down. So Beowulf was originally an oral tradition because people would talk and share. And then finally, a monk's influence. This is what I was talking about when the monks rewrote Beowulf and they made it Christian. Okay, and when they added in heaven and hell and Cain. All of those were the monks' influence. Because remember, the Vikings were originally not Christian. The monks made them Christian when they wrote down the story. Okay, go ahead, answer these questions for me. Use the transcript to help you out.